Okay, it's me again with a different hat on now. So besides being SIGPLAN Vice Chair, I am also Chair of the SIGPLAN Ad Hoc Committee on Climate Change. And I want to tell you something about the activities of that committee. As everyone knows, if you read a newspaper, human activities are contributing significantly to the growth in the atmosphere of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide. This is warming the planet. And this is bad. So what should we do? One possibility is nothing. We could just wait. In particular, we could wait for technological breakthrough. We're technologists. We like technological breakthroughs. Sadly, waiting for a technological breakthrough at this point is about the same as doing nothing. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped a slide that I want to go back to. I want to emphasize that if you read the news carefully, you may also have seen a new report a couple of months ago from the IPCC. The IPCC is the UN task force that collects together the consensus of climate scientists on what's happening. And this new report painted a particularly grim picture of where things are going. So the report says that in order to keep the total rise in temperature under 1.5 degrees Celsius, which was the target agreed to by the Paris Climate Accord a few years ago. Well, first of all, if we don't do that, the consequences will be worse than was previously understood. Second, the changes required to make that happen are large. And third, the time frame to make those changes is small. At this point, 11 years, says the IPCC, to get to a 40% reduction in worldwide emissions, and 31 years to get to net zero. Okay, so what should we do? Not nothing. Should we have hope for technological breakthroughs? Yes, and there are lots of interesting technological breakthroughs that are on the drawing boards. What we don't have is a plausible story about a technological breakthrough that's going to save us at this point. None of the technologies on the drawing boards are ready to scale to the required scale in the required time frame. This is just not going to take care of the problem by itself. Should we vote? Of course we should vote. Voting is good. Voting is critical. We're not going to get where we need to be without strong, urgent action from national governments. However, voting is also a slow process. And particularly in some parts of the world that shall remain nameless, things are moving rather slowly in this regard at the national level. So, in the meantime, while we're voting, we also need to look for meaningful opportunities to make significant changes, improvements at every level of organization. So, why am I talking to you about this? Are there meaningful opportunities for making a difference in the climate change situation within SIGPLAN or within ACM more broadly? Let me give you one data point that will suggest that there are. So this is my carbon footprint calculated with some carbon calculator that I found on the web. I didn't even bother putting numbers on it because you can get different numbers from different carbon calculators. But what I want to point out is the high order bit, which is air travel. Air travel for me is far and away the largest part of my personal contribution to climate change. So this is my story. It may also apply to many of you. So if you calculate your carbon footprint, I suspect that for many of you it will have a similar shape. But is ACM the right place to address that carbon footprint and in particular that air travel footprint? wait, I said the question wrong. Is ACM the right place to address this? No, but it doesn't need to be. The right question is, that's the wrong question. The right question is ACM a useful place? And is SIGPLAN a useful place to have some leverage over this problem? And looking at that profile of a somewhat typical POPL attendee's carbon footprint, I think the answer looks like yes. This committee was formed a couple of years ago to investigate this question. The members are myself, Mike Hicks, Christa Lopsch, and Jens Polsberg. And our answer, after thinking about the problem fairly intensively, is unequivocally yes, there are things to be done within ACM and within SIGPLAN, and we should be doing them. So we've produced a couple of reports that you can read to read about many of the ideas that we've talked about. In particular, here are some of the ones. So we could switch to virtual PCs instead of physical ones. We could choose conference locations in a smart way. We could gather data to support smart choices of conference locations. We could consider co-locating conferences, merging conferences, deleting conferences in the limit. We could develop alternatives to putting people on planes to get to conferences, live streaming, remote presentations. We've seen both of those today. And perhaps in the limit, we could go to fully virtual conferences. We can encourage regional meetings. We could serve vegetarian meals. We could buy carbon offsets. There are many things that we could think about doing. Of course, we need discussion and conversation about which of those things will give the highest impact, so which are most worth doing, and which will have the most cost in terms of disturbing the way that we do business and perhaps impacting the presumed social good that we provide in return for all of the carbon that we're burning. But this is a discussion that we need to have. This discussion has been happening, and a lot is actually happening so this isn't just discussing and generating reports. Things are actually changing a little bit in several domains. So let me tell you about some things that have been happening. One is that some conference PCs have been going virtual. This POPL, last POPL, and also last year's ICFP have switched from physical to virtual meetings. We are working on a document now describing the best practices of those meetings. SIGPLAN is not alone in this, by the way. We did a little survey of other SIGs, and it turns out that looks like something like 2/3 are now going or have gone virtual with their flagship conferences. So this seems, the writing seems to be on the wall for this, although of course there are discussions back and forth. We're also working a lot on the carbon offset issue, not because we consider carbon offsetting to be an ultimate solution to anything. Carbon offsetting is a short-term solution, but we also have a short-term situation. And in the short term, there is no discussion, you'll be relieved to hear, about simply deleting POPL 2021 or POPL 2020. For the short term, we are continuing to do business as we have and recognizing that that is the plan, doing something to mitigate the harm of those actions seems like a prudent and ethical course. Moreover, it isn't actually that expensive. It turns out to be a little bit complex in terms of the legalities of nonprofit status and exactly how the administrative aspects of exactly how you would do it. So there's a lot of discussion of that going on, both within SIGPLAN and especially at the ACM level. We have asked them for permission from their lawyers, essentially, to let us experiment with this, and they are talking about it. We have submitted an article to CACM describing the activities within SIGPLAN and urging a call to arms for ACM broadly. And we are talking to the leaders of other SIGs to try to see what's happening in other areas and connect with people there. And just a rather specific task that's going on right now is analyzing the extremely interesting registration data from the past 10 or so years of POPL, of SIGPLAN conferences, excuse me, to try to inject some data into conversations about where should we locate conferences for minimum footprint, what effect would that have on the health of the community, and so on. So bringing this to a conclusion, I just want to emphasize that I believe that SIGPLAN and ACM more broadly have both a responsibility and an opportunity to lead in this area. One, because our scientific activities have a cost, and we need to pay attention to that cost and balance it with their benefits. Second, because we as scientists have a special ability to understand, not technically, but to listen to the language that our colleagues, the client scientists, are speaking, and take them seriously. And third, because we, as ACM, can be a model for other scientific societies. And I'm sorry to say that ACM appears to be a little ahead of the curve in scientific societies broadly. Moreover, SIGPLAN appears to be, this is not a rare event, ahead of the curve within ACM. And so we, in this room and SIGPLAN broadly, can actually push the envelope and create action within ACM, and action within ACM can then be copied elsewhere. I hope I've motivated you a little bit to want to join in. There are many places that you can join in. First of all, you can talk to us. I particularly invite you to talk to us if you think we're taking the wrong approach or have the wrong end of the stick. Those conversations are incredibly useful, but also talk to us if you agree. There will be a survey after POPL asking for your thoughts about many things, but including this. We would love to hear them. There is I've already mentioned these reports. You can join the ACM climate mailing list, which you can find by Googling SIGPLAN climate. You can calculate your own carbon footprint and perhaps offset your travel to this conference and other places. We like the Cool Effect offset vendor, but there are many. And we have other projects in mind that I would be very happy to discuss. Thank you.